Hi, my name's Thete and welcome to the Mailbox where we discuss some of the things that you guys have been putting on the videos over the last week. And this week there's actually a nice little mix. I was quite surprised. I thought it'd all be a couple of topics. But no, there's a nice little mix of different lore questions as well as, general Blizzard and World of Warcraft questions as well. And we finish off with a lovely little comment at the end as well, just to finish on a high note. So the first thing, however, is where's the mailbox? So what we do here is I've plonked a mailbox down somewhere. You have to say where it's in, which zone it's in, and which specific place within that zone it's in, not coordinates or anything like that, the name of the place. Last week's was a little trigger. There's a few people had a stab at it, but couldn't quite get both bits. But there were, usually about half a dozen. There's about 5 people here. Did get it. It was indeed Thistle Shrub Valley in Tanaris, down to the bottom there. Again, something bringing back some fond memories there. So this week's is a little trickier, potentially. A little trickier. Bit out of the way. Okay, so you have to say where it is and which zone it is in as well. Okay, so on to the actual question stroke statements, this one. We start off with the bad ones and we'll end up at the good ones. So first one. Customer service is poor and the GMs are not fixing anything. If you have an issue, they blame you, call you a liar and kick you to the curb. I have to say, none of them have tried kicking me to the curb yet. And none of them have tried calling me a liar. That would be remarkable if anyone's doing that. I would certainly screenshot that one. However, I have noticed, as someone who doesn't fill out tickets a great deal, but nonetheless, over the course of the World of Warcraft game, since vanilla and so on, I have every now and then had, the need to fill out a ticket. And I did, a couple of months ago, something like that. And I have to say, it is certainly true that I think customer service across the board is getting poorer. Think about where customer service feeds into it. Obviously, when you're having tickets dealt with, that is one aspect. The other aspect is feedback on the forums and discussions on the forums, that sort of thing as well. Now, I have to say, there have been times in the past where when you've had an issue, your ticket issue, the GM has really tried to sort it out. They've really tried very hard to do it. In most cases, they can do it. And then in some cases, they can't. Whereas, I'll give you an example that happened to me. I have talked about this before. And it's before Christmas now, but I can't remember how far before Christmas. But anyway, what happened is one week, I had done a plus 11 Mythic Plus dungeon. But when I opened my cache the next week, I didn't get a plus 10, I got a plus 9. So I filled in a ticket. Now the first GM, because what they're doing now, as far as I can tell, I don't think, I know people say, oh, do these developers even play, the game? I think they do. I'm not sure the GMs do though, because they obviously had this list of known issues that they look at it and just go, oh, it's a known issue, nothing I can do about it. So what happened was, apparently there are a couple of issues here. One of which is something to do with deleting your key, right? So he just read that thing. Oh, you've deleted your key. Don't do that in future. And that was it, because he didn't talk to me live, because he didn't catch me live. That's fine. That's okay. But I hadn't. So I filled out another ticket. No, I'm not happy about this. Filled out another ticket. Now, the next GM did actually say, oh, yeah, because I'd explained it all clearly as well. That GM should never have come to that conclusion with the information I gave them. And he read it and he said, okay, yeah, it looks like the previous GM didn't appreciate certain things. Looked into it. And what the GM said was, again, they didn't catch me live. They said, it is a known issue. He says, yes, okay, the deleting the key thing can also do this. But also it is a known issue that sometimes people don't get a key that's one below the one they successfully completed the week before. And he says, it's a known issue. And I thought, okay. But they weren't going to do anything to fix it. They said they can't. Now, here's the thing. All they had to do, I can't remember what key it was. Let's say it was freehold and I'd got a plus 9 and it should have been plus 10. All they had to do was to take out the plus 9 keystone from my bags and replace it with the plus 10. And they didn't. Now, we all know that GMs can replace things in bags. Okay, they can even take you out of a location, put you back, and all the rest of it. Sometimes I've been stuck on a quest that where the quest itself is stuck, it will not let me advance. And they've just basically asked me to log out. They've monkeyed about with my character, moved it, removed the quest and all the rest of it that was not abandonable by me, and reset it, and it's all worked fine. So there's all sorts of things they can do, and we definitely know they can remove an item from the bags and put another one in. That's easy. So the fact that they're not doing it, either, although that second GM sounded like they had at least more knowledge than the first GM, maybe they still didn't realise they could do that, which is worrying, because that makes you worry about the level of training there. Or they've actually been told not to do that for, again, whatever reason. But either way you look at it, I have been inconvenienced by a bug in the game that was rectifiable by a GM that they didn't rectify. And I don't know whether the reason that they wouldn't, if they deliberately just don't do it, is because, well, it's a known bug, it's happening to quite a few people, and if we do it for people and then people hear that, they'll send in more tickets and we need to keep the number of tickets down. Maybe it's down to that. But however way you look at it, I am going to agree that although they've never given me a kick in or called me a liar, they have nonetheless not given me good customer service of late. Whereas in the past, a couple of years ago and back to vanilla, it was always very good service. So yeah, I do think the customer service has gone down. There are a number of aspects to there's just this larger disconnect between the company and its customer base, which seems strange. You can almost imagine it when you're getting loads and loads of customers, and so you can't all give them all that personal contact, and you start to be a bit blasé about it. Like, if you've got millions and millions of customers, then one customer is not, is not that important. It's a stupid thing to say, really, but it's not. But in a situation where they've got ever declining customers, to not only value the ones you still have and therefore risk losing them, but to allow that message to get out there that you don't value customers. I don't really see how that's supposed to either A, encourage new customers, or B, retain the ones you already have. So yeah, I have to say this is a big gripe of mine at the moment. And to the next one. So we're talking about Zandalari Paladins. And it says, I think you have to look at each race class combo as its own little thing. Zandalari Paladins are just Paladins for gameplay purposes, whereas in lore they're seen as a warrior that has light-based magic from the lower. Not anymore. No, not with Zandalari Paladins. But anyway, even with the other ones, the prelate stuff like that, I'd be delighted, I have to say. I would absolutely be delighted if the gameplay for the different classes was just a gameplay template, and you had different races had this massive range of lots of different things. So, for example, we never had Tauren Paladins; they were just Sunwalkers, and the Zandalari Paladins, if they were just prelates or something like that. Although they are going to become a different thing, that would suit me down to the ground. And we've discussed this before, actually, Azeroth a while ago now. And the reason this would suit me down to the ground is because if every spec was just a template, it could massively expand the range of roles that any particular player of a class could adopt. For example, we talked about this one before. For example, for paladins of all types, not just a race thing, we could have... Oh, the priest got well upset about this. But why not just let us have a range spec? Because you know how it is when they keep designing fights that screw over melee, and then you can't have your melee. But most guilds have loads of melee, and it really stuffs them over. They can have perfectly good players, but they're not competing because they just don't have enough range for those fights. And it's also, even when they do, shitty for the melee players who have to sit out, not because they're, and to sit out for players who may not be as good as them, but they're playing the right role. But you can't expect Blizzard to create new range specs for the classes that don't already have one. So, which is most of them, well, half of them. But what if you just mapped on an existing one? So we discussed this a while ago and said, well, why not, for the ranged paladin spec, you just use Shadow Priest? Obviously, you replace the names of the abilities and the animations. So instead of shadowy things, it's all light things. But the gameplay is the same. The spells are the same. The abilities are the same. They work in exactly the same way. They do the same amount of damage. Everything is the same. Why not do it like that? And obviously the class-wide abilities like your flash of light and stuff like that, that stays like that. You don't take the priest version of that. But just in terms of the damagey abilities, we use the Shadow Priest version and just change the name of it and change the animation so it's yellow instead of purple. and that would work amazingly well. It would upset the Shadow Priest, but that would work really well for that as well. But then you give the Shadow Priest a melee spec. You know, it's all good. It's all good. Obviously, they don't want that. But, you know, you could. I don't know. What would you do with the priest? Let's have a think. I don't know. Would you give him like a survival hunter spec? And, you know, and instead of a spear, of course, they've got their staff still. And when they do the chain thing, then that's like a light tether or something that pulls them towards it. There's stuff you could do. You could do this across all classes very easily. But the problem is that although it might be nice, particularly in the case of Paladins, to think of it in these terms, unfortunately that's not how it is in the game. But I think it would work. There could potentially be balance issue because it's like anything else, isn't it? If you then make one particular class more competitive in raids, therefore, because you've given them access to that role, by definition, that makes other ones less competitive because you've sort of narrowed the field. But hopefully what it would do would give all classes equal worth in a raid, and potentially in a Mythic Plus dungeon as well, but that's harder to achieve because the individual utility is more of a thing there. It is also a thing in raids, which is where the other problem comes. If you can only have a small number of melee, the ones that bring the best utility, you know, rogues, you know, they're the ones that just tend to get taken all the time, aren't they? Right, okay, next one. So, back onto some lore ones. So, it says, for me, I think we more defeated the essence of Cthun and Yogg-Saron, the essence that have been leaking out of their prisons for tens of thousands of years. As with how Yogg-Saron lost his control over Ulduar, if all his leaked essence is defeated by us, then there's nothing left, so he has no control. I do feel that Cthun is now killed not by us, but by Sargeras, as we were facing and defeating Argus. Sargeras was a cloud around the planet. He is a titan that sliced the planet in half, so the void old gods could not corrupt a titan. Why did he not just do that while we were fighting? I think he was trying to find an old god, and when Amonthul started to pull him away, he stabbed at the spot where Cthun was. Here's the thing. I thought that too. When I first saw that cinematic, that's exactly what I thought. In fact, when I first saw the sword, I saw the sword way before the cinematic, of course, because PTR. That's what I thought. Because first thing I saw when I saw that sword was, that's not Sargeras' sword. So, yes, that's a thing. But that's not the case. I'm certain that's not the case. Not because they specifically said it's not the case, but there's a few things wrong. Well, there's a few things. First of all, yeah, you're saying to yourself, why didn't he just chop Azeroth in half as we know he's capable of? He clearly had the time before the Titans pulled him away. There are a number of other cinematics that have been done recently where there are equally baffling decisions made by the characters as part of them. So the fact that it doesn't make sense does not mean there's a deeper meaning somewhere that hasn't yet been revealed. The other thing is, like I said before, I was convinced as soon as I knew that the sword was going to be a thing, I thought to myself, and I've said this before in the video I just did on Azeroth, I said, this is the pre-expansion event. Sword goes into Cthulhu, because we were told a long time ago, no, you've only defeated Cthulhu, you haven't killed him. Same with Yogg-Saron. Sword goes into Cthulhu. Ow, I've got a sword in my belly. Rage, 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 rage. Probably die as a result of it, but lots of turmoil, lots of crap going on in Silithus. Old Godsy related pre-expansion event. Leads nicely into battle for Azeroth. But that didn't happen. Not a whimper from him. I don't believe that a sword stuck into Cthulhu it's not gone straight into his brainstem or something, you know, because apart from that was a bit further north. It's not going to kill him instantly. There's going to be a reaction, and there wasn't. And that to me says already dead. Okay. And there is also, I don't want to spoil this, but there is also, I've been looking at data mine stuff. There's a little quote which doesn't prove that we've killed Cthulhu and Yogg-Saron, but strongly suggests that the belief amongst the denizens of Azeroth is that they weren't just defeated, but killed. So I think we have killed them. I think we have. Obviously, it will take until a certain point in Battle for Azeroth before it's really confirmed, because Blizzard have never explicitly stated that they are now dead, as far as I know. But I'm pretty sure if they had, that would stick in my mind, because that's one of the big unknowns in the Warcraft lore at the moment. But I think as we learn more and more about BFA, more and more certain that Cthulhu and Yogg-Saron are both dead. So I think they are. But yeah, I totally get it. You know, the sword stabbing thing is not what he could have done to destroy Azeroth. But then there's other cinematics that don't make a lick of sense either in terms of motivations of the characters. And like I say, the fact that there was no death rattle or anything like that from Cthulhu, again, suggests that he wasn't alive to have a death rattle in the first place. Because there's no way it missed him. Cthulhu is huge. He easily covers the expanse of Silithus and beyond. So, yeah. Next one, another little lore one, I think. It says, I do not think the problem is the ability to kill old gods, but the consequences. They're described as parasitic symbiotes which feed on light. I don't think... Where are they described as symbiotes? I don't think that's... Is it? No, I'm not sure. And you're saying HOS? Bugger. What's HOS? Hall of something? Oh, no. Anyway, we'll take what you're saying as correct. But remember, long time ago, so easily retconned. But I'm not sure. But anyway, it says, if Unzoth is existing in this type of relationship with Azeroth, then killing one would most likely kill the other. My belief is the battle will rage on across the sea between Zandalot and Kulturas. Before I move on, actually, we know that killing one doesn't kill the other. Because we killed one. Well, we haven't killed one. Well, we have, actually. Because going back to the previous one, I'm pretty sure we've killed Cthulhu and Yogg-Saron. But, never mind that. We don't know for certain. We do know for certain that Yasharaj is dead. We know Aman'Thul killed her. The danger that did to Azeroth was creating a wound. Like a leech. It got its tendrils into her. So it's not the damage we did to Yasharaj the problem. It's the damage we did to Azeroth, or Aman'Thul did to Azeroth, that caused the wound. You know? And also, if it was the case that killing one kills the other, the Titans wouldn't have created Uldir to work out how to kill one without harming Azeroth. They just literally were too dumb to realise that there's another way to kill an old god beyond ripping it out, that's all. But anyway, it says, around the supposed location of Unzoth, there's nothing supposed about it, we know where Unzoth is, and he will do a jack-in-the-box on us. The truth of the relationship between the light, Titans... no, Titans are not beings of light. Let's stop that right there. Hold on. No, they are not. Not at all. We need the old diagram again, don't we? So, where is it? Here we go. So when we look at the old map and we see the light at the top of the diagram and we see shadow at the bottom, and it's described in here as well, that everything is a combination. Everything in the universe is a combination of light and shadow. The ratio can be changed, but it's all a combination of light and shadow. Apart from pure beings of light, which we can't really say Naru are, but, you know. And although it does describe it on this diagram, so that's a little bit confusing. But then again, I don't think Blizzard, even when they've done the Warcraft Chronicles, have really thought things through in enough detail. And the shadow, which should supposedly includes the old gods. If you see where the Titans are, they're closer to the shadow than the light. But what they definitely are is a combination of light and shadow. They are not beings of light. They just happen to be not out and out evil, that's all. But they are not beings of light at all. So we need to immediately stomp on that one. And shadow old gods, yes, they should be beings purely of shadow, but even that, I don't know. Because again, if you look at the diagram, it would strongly suggest old gods are entirely within that shadow sphere, but then Naru are entirely within the holy sphere, and yet we know that when, and we've known this for a long time, this isn't a recent thing that was retconned, when Naru die, they turn into beings of shadow. So doesn't that mean they've already got the shadow within them? I don't know, it's weird, never mind. You know, so the truth of the relationship between the light and shadow will eventually be revealed. I think it already has. I mean, the Warcraft Chronicles, unless they're going to retcon their own chronicles, which is what they said, we're now setting it in stone, although I think some people argue they already have, then we sort of know what that relationship is. You know, end of the day, the universe is a combination of light and shadow. The shadow don't like that. They want it to all be shadow, so that's why they want to destroy the universe. The light aren't all that bothered. They're cool with it. As far as I can tell, at any rate. Obviously, you know, they want to expand the influence of the light where they can. It says, who knows, maybe Azeroth is the child of the light and shadow, not Illidan. Again, Titans are all light and shadow, but no, I don't believe Zero would have been wrong in that respect. What Zero had wrong is that she could turn him purely into a being of the light, which obviously didn't. I mean, that would. She basically contradicted herself. If he's a child of the light and shadow, trying to turn him purely into light ain't going to work, is it? Rather than good evil, it's a battle of order chaos similar to the Babylonian creation myth, and we're caught in between. See, here's the thing. Absolutely. See, this is as soon as that Zero cinematic happened, first thing I said, right, on the channel, first thing I said was, this is exactly like Babylon 5. Exactly like Babylon 5. Where you've got these two forces. One of them appears evil, one of them appears good, but in actual fact, they're just basically exerting their own influence. One of them just happens to be kinder than the other. But in actual fact, we're just pawns in this battle of theirs that keeps cycling round and around and around. And I think that's now absolutely the case. It's not explicitly stated because Zera so far has been the only Naru that's done anything like that, and therefore the other ones still behave benevolently. And we can't, even though that's the Naru Prime, we can't base the actions of one Naru. We can't sort of map that onto every other one. But nonetheless, that's a hugely tantalising issue. And you know, this idea of battle between not so much order and chaos, because remember, you know, the Shadow don't want chaos either. They want the Burning Legion wanted chaos. The Shadow don't want chaos. They want order, really, because they want the whole thing wiped out and to start again, but purely as Shadow. Can't get more ordered than that. But yeah, so but a lot of these things, at least I think that by the end of BFA, we'll be much wiser, and I think there'll be far less areas for speculation. And that's one of the things that's really keeping me excited about the game. It's not the actual gameplay, because, well, I'm not doing the serious stuff like raiding. The rest of it is either difficult to do. Well, the solo stuff is not interesting. At least not in the quantities you'd have to do it to be playing it every week. But the story is. And I think the story has got real potential. And yes, I hope they don't cock it up, but it has got real potential, and it's looking quite exciting for 8.1.5 as well. Next one. So, if I am correct, and Battle for Azeroth eliminates old gods as a threat to Azeroth, obviously old gods exist, and new ones could be created, but in terms of the old gods we currently have threatening Azeroth, we end that threat. I firmly believe that's going to happen. So then, and what I've said is that means we've got rid of the Burning Legion as a threat. Again, nothing to say they couldn't return at some point, but that would be rubbish. But they've been removed as a threat to Azeroth. And if the old gods are as well, that means the Warcraft story has to move into a completely new direction. I think that's what they want. So it says here, the next expansion might be the long-awaited Undead, including Bolvar, Sylvanas, Brun, Samedi, Shadowlands, Necromancer class. As long as that Necromancer class is only ranged, or at least the best spec is ranged. We don't want more bloody melee. All dead stuff, you would think it should be, surely. Blizzard is definitely going to reuse the model of the meat wagon mount from Warcraft 3, Reforged. Are they? Maybe, who knows. And we have seen Void also using a lot of undead magic. Yeah, but that's because it is. Again, the charts here. Necromantic magic, again, is a combination of shadow and light. It is both. It's not shadow, it's shadow and light, but closer to shadow, assuming that positions on this chart mean anything. So the door is more than open. The door is wide open. I absolutely believe, not necessarily the next expansion, but it could be. But I absolutely believe that the Lich King story is going to be resurrected, because otherwise, why on earth is Talia a thing? And also in Before the Storm, the old Kalia thing, so we've got the other undead link there, and that was all about the Forsaken potentially fracturing into two factions. Oh yeah, undead are coming back into this game. There's surely no doubt about that. There's all these little things on their own make it look like the undead are going to have another story. Together, the cumulative effect is surely yes. Whether it is the main theme of an expansion And whether it is the main theme of the next expansion, I do not know. But I absolutely believe it is. The only thing is, what they absolutely cannot do, if this was going to be a main theme for the next expansion, and what they cannot do is call it Return of the Lich King. You not even in the typical tongue-in-cheek way Blizzard treats certain things. They'd better not do that. They can't do that. But yes, there are so, like you've pointed out, there's so many little elements related to death that could easily be the basis of an expansion, and it's all been set up very nicely for it as well. It's all been planned in advance. There's all these little things in there. It's like, why would you even do this? And I'll tell you what I am really looking forward to. Because again, at the moment, as far as I can tell, the official position is this. Very few people know that the Lich King is still a thing. They all think it's been defeated. The only people, as far as I know, that know, unless anyone's blabbed, is us. Well, Tyrion's dead now, so he's, dead men tell no tales. And Darian and his Knights of the Ebon Blade, so the Death Knights. They're the only ones, as far as I know. And again, unless any of so it's possible that Anduin doesn't know. It's possible that Sylvanas doesn't know. Or anyone else. And isn't it going to be, and there's got to be an interesting moment where Talia reveals that her father is not only not quite as dead as she supposed, but the new Lich King. Oh, and if at this point she's engaged or actually married to Anduin, because we all know what's going on there. Wow, that's going to be quite spicy, isn't it? That is going to be some spectacular family reunion. I am looking forward to that. Anyway. Right, next one. It says here, so let's talk about racials. Occasionally I get comments on very old videos. This is a very old video. It says the racials that are OP will not get nerfed until enough money is made through racial transfers. Wouldn't that be an amazing money-making scheme if they don't do this deliberately, but they don't. But wouldn't it be amazing if they did? Put out a new allied race or something like that, give it OP racials. Load of people pay for the race change to it because they're not leveling it all the way up, especially if you've got advanced characters with loads of good gear. And then they deliberately, after a few months of that, go, oh, right, we're going to nerf it now. And then they can say on the forums, oh, yeah, it seems to be a bit powerful. We need to nerf it a little bit. And then there's new racials that are more powerful. And then people race change to those. And Blizzard are going, we're on to a winner here. This is getting us some nice little beer money. Doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. If they wanted to make money, I've already said before, there are far easier ways of getting money from the online store than something like this. When racials are overpowered, I mean, first of all, it's the nature of having racials that affect gameplay. And this isn't something I particularly criticise World of Warcraft for. It happens in most MMOs. The race has a tangible effect on the performance of the character. I wish it didn't. It doesn't happen in all MMOs, but it does happen in a lot, including ESO, which is usually the one I say is like the beacon to all others at the moment. It's the new bad boy on the block here. But if anything, with ESO, racials are even more important for the particular style of play you want to play. The racials are actually super powerful in ESO, more so than in World of Warcraft, I would say. But yeah, no, it's just you can't balance them because it's like a particular racial is inevitably going to be more powerful for one class as compared to another, for example. So you can't. It's not something that's possible to be balanced. But that being said, yeah, wouldn't it be? There are better money-making schemes, so I'm sure they're not doing it deliberately. But yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if they actually just cottoned onto this and went, yeah, get all the transfers in, and then a few months down the line, nerf it because got to nerf it for the sake of balance, and then another one becomes OP and they change to that, and you keep cycling around that every 6 months. Every 6 months, keep doing that, or every new tier, like 4 or 5 months, whatever. Yeah. Next one. So going to a little bit of classic. So someone said here, I can already see people asking for gear scores and item levels to get people on guilds and stuff in WoW Classic. Now, of course, it would need an add-on to do that. I don't know of any reason why that add-on couldn't exist with Classic WoW. Remember, add-ons that exist now are not necessarily possible to make with the Classic WoW architecture. I see no reason why that one couldn't be, even if it just scanned your character for items and there was an independent database where a value was assigned to it. I can see that being a thing. I'm not saying I see the people asking for gear scores and item levels a thing. They can't ask for item levels, strictly speaking, without an add-on, of course. And then someone countered here, says, no guild or group worth even a passing thought will, though. It says, itemization and gearing simply doesn't work like that in vanilla. Everyone should and will shun those people for their stupidity. I don't know. You say itemization gear doesn't work like that in vanilla. What I would say is didn't work that way in vanilla. But I don't know. I mean, you're right. There is a big difference. And that is that in vanilla, we didn't have, until the pre-expansion patch, but that was really a TBC feature. We didn't have crit rating or hit rate or anything like that. You had an item, if it had some crit on it, it was a percentage. And that meant you had some very low level items. Like, was it the plated boots of Haku or something like that? I seem to remember some level 40 plate boots that were amazing. Level 60, bloody amazing. Because they had like crit and something else on them. Crit and haste or crit and haste, something like that. But yeah, several percent all in one go. The Lionheart helm, because that had crit on it, but it was all percentage based. These crit things were percentage based. The only way you got incremental crit and hit and stuff like, well, crit anyway, was from having, say, agility for physical crit and intellect for spell crit. So, yeah, all right, it didn't in that sense. But to say it wouldn't be a thing, I don't know, because here's the thing. What a lot of people, a lot of people that genuinely believe that WoW Classic is better than Retail WoW, and obviously it's entirely subjective, they will also be convinced, because who isn't? Everyone always sort of feels that the things they think are good, everyone else thinks they're good, because, well, they're good, aren't they? I mean, everyone must see that, otherwise they're retarded. So they won't understand the idea that someone can't prefer it. So they will think that lots of other people will play it and try it. And it may well be that some who've never played WoW do play it and do like it. But those players are used to the notion of item level. So absolutely, I believe they would translate that across. You've got to remember, people new to Classic WoW are not going to treat it in the same way that we did when it was actually new. They have now experienced years of development in MMOs in general, but in particular World of Warcraft, and they will map those expectations onto it. I absolutely believe that the behaviour will be very, very different, particularly from players who didn't play it at the time. Even maybe some who did. So I don't know. It will be interesting to see. But I mean, the whole gear score thing in the first place, I'll tell you what, it was a hell of a shock to me, because I quit the game before Ulduar. When I came back to play casually and gear score, in the interim, gear score had become a thing in Wrath. I was like, what the hell is this shit? But yeah. Right, a little thing about the new forums. So it says, this is great. I can create topics, but I can't reply to people commenting on my own topics or even reply to ongoing discussions on other topics which I was participating into from before those changes were implemented. Loving it. They're really screwing their PR. Yeah, they are. I mean, this is, again, symptomatic of this keeping players at arm's length. You've got to remember, long before these new forums were developed, Ian Hazacosta said his preferred method of feedback was via Twitter. And you've got to think what that means. Twitter, first of all, you're very limited in what you can say, so you can't actually provide any detailed analysis. Second, it's much less likely that people will have a discussion on a Twitter thread, because it's not really set up for that. It's set up for, okay, you can reply to people, but it's not really set up for those sort of things. Whereas forums are much better for that. You can not only write a detailed response, you can have other people commenting on it directly, quoting from you and all the rest of it. So that's what they've got rid of in the new forums. They don't want people discussing things. You've got the only conclusion you can draw is they do not want people discussing matters. That's it. I don't know what they want it for, because there's possibly two things. They want it to tell Blizzard things directly, but But given that they never even give us a pat on the head for doing so these days, so you wonder if we sort of, okay, in theory, someone's reading it, but do the developers get to know what any of these things being explained on the forums are? Who knows? Because there's never any acknowledgement of it. And then the only other thing is they're just using it for people to go on and have their little rant and rave, but they don't want anyone to ever get the impression that a lot of people agree with them. They certainly don't want people getting the impression they disagree with them, because they removed the dislikes, didn't they? So yeah, it can only be seen in those terms. You know, the new forums is designed to not completely prevent, there are ways, but, you know, largely eliminate discussions, community discussions. And it is stupid because people want to have those discussions. So they will just continue to have those discussions on Wowhead, on MMO Champion, on Discords, where Blizzard have no control and don't always get to see what everyone's discussing as well. It's so stupid. It is. And it's born of a paranoia there that they are now afraid of any link between them and the player base. There is this massive ivory tower. It really is quite spectacular what's going on there now. But I've complained about that far enough anyway, and won't finish. It says, why any PC player should be pleased because Bungie splits. Bungie got $100 million from NetEase 6 months ago. For this, NetEase gets a minor stake and a director post at Bungie. So congratulations, Bungie will make mobile games for NetEase. Why the hell PC gamers cheer about this? I don't think, I don't think it was because they like the Bungie games and they don't want them being interfered with by Activision Blizzard. Well, obviously that might be the case because I don't play Destiny. So obviously what I see is what the World of Warcraft community says and the Blizzard community. And I think some of them were thinking, oh, could Blizzard do the same thing? Of course, that's why I did the video. The answer is no. Bungie was not part of Activision Blizzard. It was always been its own separate company. It just had a contract, that's all. And it's bought itself out of that contract a bit early, using the money, as you say, from another company instead, which they've now bound themselves to. Whereas Blizzard and Activision are the same company. They are the same company. In order for Blizzard and Activision to split, someone with a huge pot of money would have to come along and say, I would like to buy part of your business, the Blizzard part of your business. And okay, I suppose in theory, if that happened to be people at Blizzard that do that, but I don't think the people at Blizzard have that much money, with other investors maybe, I suppose, to top it up, then in theory that could happen. But that, you know, that's not buying out a contract, that's splitting a company up. You know, it is one company. It's just kept certain things slightly separate for its own purposes, but it is one company and it has a board and you know, there it is. So that's not going to happen. And also the people blaming Activision for an awful lot of the things that are going on in World of Warcraft, I've already explained again. No, it's really not. You know, they've shot themselves in the foot. It will be now. They'll be interfering now. But, you know, there was limited to no interference before. It really is the people that Blizzard promoted to senior positions within development teams that are the reason. That's just all there is to it. So Blizzard splitting away, wouldn't change. That wouldn't change. Right, next one. So it says, what about Activision Blizzard being investigated for securities fraud over the breakup with Bungie? What do you think about that in the context of Mike Morhaime completely severing ties with the company and leaving his consulting role? So there is a little response to this. I'll tackle the Mike Morhaime one first. It's no surprise that Mike Morhaime has stepped up. The thing is, what happened was, when he was replaced as president, and I don't believe that was voluntary, they always make up that it's all a nice thing, but that was the same as like the Spice Girls when Jerry Halliwell left, and all the rest of them were going, oh, we love you, Jerry, bollocks. It was all infighting there that caused it. But when he stepped down, he didn't step down to be like vice president or something. He stepped down to the role of consultant. This is a founder of the company and a guy who's only been with that company. What is he going to consult on? He has a consultant is someone you get from outside who has experiences and knowledge and skills that don't currently exist within the company to advise. That's not fitting the role of this guy for two reasons. First of all, he's the founder of the bloody company and has been its president, that's a hell of a step down. You know, even if you're relatively humble, that's not something you want to do. But secondly, what does he bring into a consulting role? He doesn't bring in knowledge and skills and you know, points of view that don't already exist within the company, because he's always been within that company. It was a complete nonsense. It was always clearly a phased exit from the company. That's all it could ever have been. Because they didn't want a situation where he stepped down or replaced as president and then is immediately out of the company. Because that really just looks like he's been chucked out the top window. So that's all that has been. It's just been a very clumsy way to do it. But, and yes, it surely must mean for him not to have just stepped down onto, you know, a senior position on the board has surely meant there's bad blood over this. This is an unpleasant situation. And it doesn't bode well for Blizzard, because Mike Morhaime, although, you know, he hasn't been involved in day-to-day running of games development or anything like that for a good long time, he is the nice guy of Blizzard. They have basically assassinated the nice guy of Blizzard. So that's what I think about that. You know, I don't think it's got anything to do with Bungie or anything like that. I can't say that it definitely hasn't, but I don't think it has. I think, you know, it was always just a managed, phased exit from the company. He was given a non-role, just so that there was a passage of time, that's all. Then someone added here onto the legal side of it, because I have no idea about this investigation. It might be of interest once it's concluded. So someone's saying here that the law firm itself is one with a history of doing investor class action suits for money. It's not government or regulators. So potentially, I suppose what it is actual Blizzard investors who are not very happy about this and want it checked out to make sure, I suppose, that they're not going to lose any money over it. So it could just be as simple as that then in that case. I don't know. And it's not really worth me trying to dig into it. You know, at some point it will be concluded. At that point, maybe it will be newsworthy. Maybe it won't. We'll just have to wait and see. Is what I would say to that. So I promised we'd finish on a happy note, and here's our happy note. So someone's saying here, I still find BFA super fun. I'm very addicted to islands. I do the warfronts on all 8 of my maxed tunes. Where's the other 4? Get a move on. I'm constantly doing dailies just to see how high I can get my necklace. It's a personal thing, nothing enforced by the guild, as I don't raid. It's just something I want to do for myself. I love just doing stuff, staying on and seeing what I can do. I've done it every expansion and been able to have a lot of fun all the time. What I get tired of is people telling me I'm wrong for having fun, for being able to stay occupied and find stuff to do. Everyone can play the way they want, and if I choose to take advantage of most everything the game offers and finding myself immersed in aspects of it, there is nothing wrong with that. No, indeed. And I hope that, you know, when I criticise things, that I keep trying to emphasise the fact that the fun aspect of it, whether you enjoy it or not, is subjective. Whether something works well as in a gameplay sense is less, you know, that's much more objective. You can be objective about that. The way that they're communicating, again, I think you can have objective criticism to that. But in terms of what is fun, this is why it was always a nonsense Blizzard talking about there. Oh, the fun metric is the most important thing. What is fun for one person is not for another. There are people who have fun. There are people who play this game who are new to this game. And I keep saying that the new player experience is absolutely shocking. But there are people who come to this game new and love it. Absolutely love it. You know, so, you know, yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous that people will say someone is wrong for enjoying a particular thing. But again, it comes back to what I've just said before. People have in their own heads that everyone, if they really thought about it, would agree with them on every little thing. Because, you know, if someone finds something enjoyable, they can't understand why other people wouldn't find it enjoyable. And if someone finds something tedious, they can't understand how someone can enjoy it. And therefore, they just assume that that person hasn't really thought about it in enough detail. They haven't really examined themselves. They need to be a bit more mindful. And they'll realise how awful this experience is. But unfortunately, people are different. They find different things fun. And I think a big part of it in World of Warcraft, now this person doesn't mention this or not, so I don't know, but I think a big part of it in World of Warcraft is the social aspect. Like, for example, if, you know, in the social group we have that was doing Mythic Plus Dungeons for a little while, but hasn't really been doing that. I think a couple of people have been trying to get one together again for today. So we may do a Mythic Plus Dungeon today, but we may equally not. Now, if this group was regularly on and doing islands and doing Mythic Plus Dungeons, and stuff like that. I would be as well, because I would do that content if it was people I knew and I was on TeamSpeak and we're having a laugh. That would make it way more enjoyable. So sometimes it can just be that social aspect, whereas just doing it on my own is not fun and I don't do it. Obviously, I can't do Mythic Plus Dungeons on my own. But, even Islands, which I could just queue up for, and I won't pug the Mythic Plus Dungeon. Well, I can't anyway in Paladin, and not one with an IO score. But, even if I could, wouldn't anyway. So, yeah. But it is nice, obviously, that people stand up for themselves and go, no, I enjoy it. Piss off. It is nice. And there were a number of supportive comments on that as well, which is also nice to see. So there we go. We finish on our happy note. And yes, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a like. Click the subscribe button for further content. Click the bell notification to be notified of the further content. Don't forget about the Azeroth Review, our live little discussion on Tuesday evenings. And until next time, I will see you later.